Brown paper is one of the ultimate junk journal supplies, and today I'm going to be making an entire journal just using brown paper that I've got for free. So cardboard, packaging, paper bags, I've gathered it all and I'm going to be using this to bind the base of a journal, and then I'm going to take you through the process in a little bit of a series of then working within the brown paper journal and looking at different techniques that we can use specifically on brown paper and like kraft paper. So I'm just showing you here the different things that I've collected, and the fun thing about this, aside from obviously the fact that this is in the large part like just a free supply that you can get from literally anywhere, you've probably already got it in your house, you can go and grab some now to start making, is that everybody's stash of packaging and brown paper is going to be completely unique. So you'll end up with something that is one of a kind in terms of a journal, and I would really encourage you to lean into the fact that your journal is going to be a different size and shape depending on the packaging you have. So for the cover, I've picked one of the sturdier, almost like cardboard, thicker card pieces here, and I've just trimmed off the excess, and all I'm going to do is just eyeball it and see what kind of size I would like for the cover. So I've just folded it in half here, as you can see, and I'm just using the back of a pair of scissors there just to press it down to make sure that I've got a nice crease there. And then literally all I'm doing is just trimming off where there are bits that are like sort of overhanging, and then I just sort of got a feel for what size journal would I want to work in. So it's probably like around about 6 by 4 inches or A6 size, but honestly I would really encourage you to just pick a size journal that you think you might want to work in. So, you know, if you've got packaging where it's going to be like a skinnier journal, do that. If you want to make something that's like A5 size, you can do that. Just size the measurements up or down depending on what you've got. And if your packaging is a little bit like mine and you've got the rips where you've had labels on it that you've torn off, then I'm just going to use some of the thinner brown paper here just to act as the end papers of this journal. And initially I actually wanted this to be on the inside of the journal, but then once I had glued these down, because the piece wasn't big enough, so I ended up doing a little bit of a patchwork, and I had these two slightly different shades of brown paper here, so they kind of contrasted against each other quite nicely. And I trimmed off the excess here, as you can see, and I actually ended up using this as the outside of the journal. So you can totally do it either way. You can use it on the inside or you can do it on the outside as part of your cover as well, and it just adds a really nice texture and a bit of interest to get you going with the cover. Now we're going to work on the inside of the pages. So I've got a range of different like paper bags and different thicknesses of brown paper as well. Some of them are like crumpled and torn and not even. So all I'm literally doing is just using my cover here as a bit of a guide, a bit of a template, and I'm just putting the papers inside the cover and then just trimming around it, and sometimes like ripping the edges, and just using that as a way to get a rough estimate of how big the pages are going to be. So you can see here this piece is not uniform in the slightest, so I decided to lean into it and just tear the edges and have this be one of those pages where it's not the same size as all of the other pages. And I think for a journal that's bound this way with all of the brown papers and just the different textures that are going to be included within this, I think it's the perfect style for that. So if you are somebody who maybe always does journals that are pages the same size and you want to get into a bit more of that like textured, eclectic look and feel of pages of different sizes, then maybe this might be the perfect project just to try all that out, because you do just end up with so much like crumpled brown paper, and I think it just lends itself so perfectly to this. And I'm even using here, as you can see, this is thicker card as well, but this is just some random packaging. I think tissue paper came in it, and I'm not hiding the fact that it is the packaging. So I'm leaning into where we've got the sort of pocket-esque type of folds going on there, because once I fold this in half, we will get a bit of a pocket emerging from the page, as you can see there. And so I'm just going to lean into it, like full junk journal style, just having the packaging kind of be the base of this journal. And like I said, as I go through the series of working within this junk journal, you'll see the different ways that we can use different mediums and techniques and all sorts to embellish and, make these pages really shine, even though they are literally just brown paper. Now, if you are somebody who has absolutely loads of brown paper, because I feel like I always just collect it, it's so easy to do. I did a video last year about how you can transform some of those brown papers into collage papers as well. So if you're interested in seeing that, I will leave a link down below in the description box if you want to check that one out. So as I'm binding this journal here, I'm just going through the different papers that I've got. You can see here I've got smaller little offcuts as well, and I've decided to include those as well, just as some smaller pages. Now, it's probably a little bit too much on the smaller side for an actual page, so probably what will happen there is that I will end up extending the page somehow. So I'll show you how I work with pages of different sizes as well, because there's definitely things you can do to, patchwork them and lean into that scrappy feel that brown paper lends itself to. This is another interesting page that I'm going to be adding to this journal. So I've actually got just a couple of envelopes here. One is smaller than the other, and all I did was I just glued them together. So I opened one of them up and just glued it to the smaller one, and that's kind of made a little bit of a makeshift page. And you can see how then the envelope opens up and it immediately just adds some built-in pockets. So there's loads of different things you can do. So really have a look at the packaging that you've collected and whether there are any that have pockets, or where you could fold them in order to make interesting pages. Obviously, like I said at the beginning, it will totally depend on the packaging that you have. So you can see here I've got a real range of different papers. Some will be lighter browns as well, and others will be on the darker side too, so you really get that contrast between them. This one even was a bag, so it had a plastic element to it, and I just figured that could be a really cool element to try and include on a page, with having a see-through element, and then also the fact that it's the brown paper on one side, but then obviously the shiny plastic side on the other. So I think that's going to be really interesting, and maybe a bit of a challenge actually, to see how I can add things onto such a shiny surface, because that's definitely not something that I normally work with. If anything, I actually really prefer having a matte surface to a lot of the things that I do within my journals. So you'll notice as well as I'm assembling these papers, so I'm just making a signature out of them. So it's literally where you just tuck them inside one another like this, and I kind of move them around and see how they sit within one another, just so that I'm happy with the order of the pages before I actually then bind it into the journal itself. So you'll notice I kind of mix up having a full sheet page, and then I'll have smaller ones, and just stagger them almost throughout the pages so that you have that layered effect as you go throughout the journal. And once I'm happy, I'm just tearing off any excess there. Now, the next stage is to bind this. And for reference, my journal has 9 sheets of different brown papers folded in half, but of course it will depend a little bit on the thickness of the papers you're using. So I'm just binding it here using a pamphlet stitch, which if you want a full tutorial, a slowed down version of how to do this, I will leave a link down below. I've got a video that walks through step by step how to do this, but this is a really basic and super easy binding method. It's probably one of my go-tos for making journals. And it's also just such a beginner friendly method as well for binding a junk journal, so it's definitely one of my favourites. So I'm just tying a few knots here in the centre, obviously to make sure that everything is nice and secure and won't move or go anywhere whilst I am working within this journal, and then I'll just trim off the excess. So this was literally just some embroidery thread, it was nothing fancy at all, and I did pick one that had a bit of a like white and pink to it because I thought that that might contrast really nicely against the brown paper that we've got going on for this journal. So this is how the journal is looking once I have the base assembled here. So this is literally just brown paper packaging folded in half, bound into a little journal like this, and you can see the different textures and just all the crinkly papers ready to work in, and the different sizes as well, and also how you've got the different colours of brown paper too, because I feel like not all brown papers are created equally. I do have my favourites, so the ones that have more of a like warmer, richer tone are definitely ones that I find a lot easier to work with, but I wanted to include just a variety of different papers here so that I could work within them, and I just thought it would be fun to have a nice mix of the different brown papers within this journal. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is decorating the cover, and I wanted to keep this fairly minimal but still with quite a bit of impact here. So I've got my modelling paste here and a few like floral like leaf stencils, and I picked one of the designs that I thought might work quite well on this because I wanted it to be the focal point, and I didn't want it to be too intricate that the modelling paste would kind of struggle to pick up all of the details, but I still wanted it to be fairly bold and have a little bit of detail to it. So this is the stencil that I chose, and I'm just using some washi tape here to attach it to the cover, so obviously it doesn't move around as I am adding the modelling paste, and I positioned it slightly off the edge of the journal just because I didn't want this to feel like I had just stuck something on the front of the journal, if that makes sense. So I had it overlapping just to, I guess, make it look a little bit more natural, and I really love the contrast of the white modelling paste here against the kraft background. I think this is the same as when you use like a white gel pen on kraft paper as well, like just the pop that it gives. So like even though this is like super simple, there's nothing fancy going on here at all, the impact that it has on the cover I think is really nice. And you can see here I was being so slow to peel it off to make sure that I didn't, cause any accidental smudges, because I think in order to have that impact, you really need that crisp image. So I didn't want to detract too much from it, as I said. So I decided just to get out my gold shimmery watercolors here, which I thought would have a really nice touch to the cover, because you just get a little bit of sparkle, but it wasn't something that would be too in your face. And I think it shows up as well really nicely on the brown paper there, as you can see. So I did go in with a couple of different shades of the gold as well, just for some added interest, and that was essentially all I did for the cover of this journal. So I hope you enjoyed joining me for the process of putting this brown paper journal together, and I hope as well that you'll join me for the adventure of actually using it and doing the different techniques on the brown paper. So as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.